And it was like a very awkward 10 minutes where I was like, I don't have
How
money
did your deadline go?
No, we don't talk about these things.
We don't talk about deadlines?
BRIDGECast.
He doesn't care about Monogram.
I
It's
do.
all about
I do.
No,
Talking about the deadline.
yeah.
I feel like Brandon's not a Monogram type of person, though. I don't think you drink coffee.
What makes you say that?
You don't drink coffee, do you?
I do.
What? I thought you were like a Red Bull and Red Bull only.
Red
No.
Bull.
God, no. I did that one summer and almost died, I think. It was a long story, but I woke up on my front stoop, like, kind of passed out from an energy high. It was a really bad time. Welcome to BRIDGECast.
Wait, was it you who told us about like that crazy like night you had in Montreal where you like?
Well, no, we don't talk about Montreal. Montreal's like Fight Club.
So it was you then.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Brandon
was
has a
wondering
whole
who it
bunch
was.
of interesting stories.
Yeah.
As you get to be an older person, if I can say I'm an
older
older person, you start to have crazier and crazier stories about things you do, especially if you're very adventurous. If you're adventurous and like I won't tell you what building I got on top of, but in Toronto we rooftopped on top of a few buildings that were under construction, and we're talking more than 10 stories, and that was pretty fun. We get chased around by a security guard for a little bit. I don't know, we shouldn't be talking about this.
Confessions with Brandon.
But yeah, anyway, so welcome to BRIDGECast, I said it again. But for those that don't know, this is our student-run podcast where we try and take topics, things that we find interesting, and try and break them down into bite-sized pieces and make them culturally relevant to other people our age, and try and engage the community at the same time, which is actually slowly working, and that's going to be a minor theme of tonight's podcast. But anyway, I'm Brandon, and I am the creator of BRIDGECast, and with me here today is...
Say your name.
Hi, I'm Fion.
Hi, I'm Ozzy.
I'm Poorna.
And today's big... You look very confused, Fion. No?
Just
Good?
keep going.
Okay.
Chill.
Today's very big overarching theme, we'll call it, is films, more specifically film festivals in a way. And we're going to try and tie everybody's stories back in. It's the first time we're trying this. Every other time we've had random topics, and they're fun, but there's not really a connective piece to them all. So we're hoping to try and do that today. But the reason we're talking film festivals is because the Grand River Film Festival is happening this week, I think, and part of next week, if I remember.
I think it ends on the 7th, which is what, Friday?
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So this week only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so why don't we all say what we are going to talk about, and then we'll try and tie it back into film festival. How's that sound?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I was going to talk about like how films bring culture to people that you otherwise wouldn't experience. Yeah.
True.
Cool.
Fion?
I was going to talk specifically about this one short called Orbit Ever After,
Okay.
and just the production of a short on a low budget and like the creativity that goes into making certain stunts and
Sure.
stuff.
I was gonna talk about something similar to Brandon, so like international or like foreign films in
Yeah.
film festivals and like
Yeah.
the role they play.
And I was going to talk about a Russian philosopher. His last name is Pop, and how he kind of broke down. He broke down books, and you can apply that same structure to films, and it's like a really cool way to look at movies.
Sure. Okay. Sounds cool. Well, one thing I'll say before we get going is I want to thank our photographer who's been here to every episode thus far, Jason. Hi, Jason.
Silent Wave.
Silent Wave. This is a podcast, not a video. But he's done a fantastic job and shows up every time to take pictures. All the great cover pictures we have for the episodes are thanks to him. So I want to thank Jason. Oh, look, there's people coming in. So we also have microphones here today that we can hopefully engage other people in.
That's sick. It's Natalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, guys.
Hey.
We have microphones this week, and they work.
Whoa, they're so excited.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we do like a bit of a speed round through our topics? Then we can talk about film festivals, and then we can actually start asking people things. How's that sound?
Yeah,
Sure.
that sounds good.
Okay. So like maybe like a few minutes each, and we'll talk about what we're thinking and get bits amongst ourselves, and then film festival, and then we'll talk to other people. So Who wants to start? Not me.
Oh, I was looking at you, hoping you'd say.
Okay,
me.
you get to go first.
So, so basically, this philosopher, he looked at books and he was like, every book that's of the same topic has like a certain type of beginning, a certain type of middle, and a certain type of end.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then as things got cooler and you started getting films, people started applying that to films, and it's really cool to watch a whole bunch of rom-coms and then, well, I mean, maybe sad, not cool, and then realize that the beginning of them and the middle of them and the end of them is almost exactly the same. And one time, me and a friend, we analyzed just the trailer to a rom-com,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to time it to the minute in the ad,
Sure.
to say, in this part they're gonna have a pop song, and then in this part they're gonna have an almost kiss, and then in this part they're going to dance, and that we predicted that with a couple trailers, and it was just crazy to be able to be like,
Sure.
whoa, they all do the same thing, and yet we still watch them, and I don't know, I still enjoy watching rom-coms, and I still enjoy watching and all the genres of movies that I watch.
Right.
So it's a crazy thing that
Well,
happens.
That gets into like types and other things like that. Like a rom-com is called a rom-com because there's been enough of them that they are sort of an archetype. They've been typified in that sense. But yeah.
But
Sorry.
it's cool that like even within these archetypes you get like really original things, and you
Mhm.
think it's super duper original, and like they've broken every norm possible, and then you go and you think about it and it's like they follow the same structure, even if it's not as overt, it's still there.
Wait, so you think that like rom-coms are original like these days? Because like I disagree.
Okay, I was
feel
just
like
using the
it's kind of
rom-com
predictable
as an
as to
easy
what's gonna
access
happen.
point. But like even take like a Wes Anderson rom-com. Those are rom-coms. They follow, like Rushmore is kind of. I think it is.
Well, okay, sure, okay.
And like it follows the same structure as like, I don't know, Pop Goes the Heart or some other.
Okay.
Do you want to like go into a bit more depth
Well,
about?
or actually, I was gonna say, do you want to actually just kind of like pull above the trees and kind of try and slot in where you're going with the types and what you're gonna add to what you're gonna say? Because I feel like we could talk about rom-coms for an hour and a half and still feel like, why are we talking about rom-coms?
Yeah, so like this works with any sort of genre of any art form, I guess.
Mhm.
Like in a heroic story, you have the heroic triangle where they like didn't you guys learned about this in English class, hopefully.
Maybe.
All right. Where there's like the beginning where the hero is separated from his family, and then it's usually a guy, and then
The hero's journey?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what
isn't
I'm
that
talking
Joseph
about.
Campbell?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's shaped like a triangle.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
and then so they get separated, and then someone gives them like a mystical thing, and then there's a prophecy, and then like they
Okay.
do things, and that same structure is still true to like modern films, which is crazy because it's been around for so long, and yet
Mhm.
I think it's kind of phenomenal that you can be conscious that this structure exists, and yet when I'm watching a movie, and if it's a good movie, I'll be like, whoa, I didn't even expect that.
Mhm.
And they still follow the same structure.
Sure.
So it's like it's almost like commendable that there's people who can create this unexpected adventure.
Mhm.
Yeah, it still follow convention.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
I guess because it's a tried and tested method, right? It's been around for so long.
Well, also
So-
too, like it's very hard to cut against the grain. Like if you're going to come out with a movie that does not follow any typical storytelling, it's either going to be it's going to be polarized response. It's going to be, wow, that was amazing, or oh my god, that sucked. Or if you stick with like a traditional storytelling and a traditional method of telling a story, it's kind of like, oh, the movie can suck, but people can be like, oh, it's still pretty good. I enjoyed it. It's kind of like this movie, similar in type.
Mhm.
I was at the Chicago Film Festival, and I saw Underground Perfume, and it's almost a rom-com in a way, which is crazy because it's not even maybe it's a comedy. It was in Chinese. I mean, it was in Cantonese. Yes. and so but it still followed this story arc of the girl meets the boy, and it almost followed the same like time lengths and stuff too, and it integrated these political undertones and stuff like that. So it wasn't familiar in terms of the story, but it was still familiar in a certain way. So I guess I don't really know where I'm going with this.
I'm gonna ask. So why don't we say in films there's different types, and you can follow the type and change something about it, but it still can feel like the type. Is that kind of where we're going with this?
Yeah, I guess. But also it can feel not like the type and still be the type.
Okay.
Like today we were talking.
That's what he said. I'm pretty sure.
No,
right?
didn't you say the opposite of that?
I said people can follow the type and still be a part of the type, or they can change something about it and it'll still feel like the type.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that might be what I said.
I don't know.
It is. I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, why don't we table that for the moment, and we'll come back. And Fion, why don't you tell us about the short film that you had watched and the low budget that they had to work with and all that?
Alright.
I'm very curious
Okay.
because I have something to add to that.
Okay. Cool. So the film, as I mentioned, is called Orbit Ever After. I'm not sure if you guys had the time to watch it. It's like 20 minutes. If you haven't, it's a good watch.
You should watch it right now.
Literally.
We're going to pause and be right back.
BRIDGECast reacts.
But yeah, it's a 6 short. It's like a very low budget short, as I mentioned, and it's impressive because it's set in space.
Okay.
So for a low budget film to be set in an area that you don't have access to film, it's I thought that was really cool. There were a lot of different ways that they planned the stunts, the anti-gravity stunts, and filming the Earth, like rotating around the Earth by painting a barrel. The gravity stunts by like tilting camera angles and rolling on like trolleys, hanging things from like clear wire, like fishing wire, like green screens and stuff, building miniatures, building sets and filming from certain angles, having people like hold things in the back while you're like rolling on a trolley to simulate like something floating,
right?
Like fake legs in the back like floating upward,
right?
All those little things like put together to make a really good short film.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I should go into depth like explaining the film now. I kind of want people to watch it.
Yeah.
But basically the premise is that there's a family. There is a mother and a father and a grandfather, and their teenage son, and they are orbiting around the Earth in a very like old-fashioned, rickety like spaceship, and they're just going and
like you do,
and they're orbiting around the Earth, and the way they survive, the way they sustain themselves is they fish for like space junk with a net, and they put it through this processor, and then it comes out with this like goop, and they eat it. So
I really want to watch this.
It's cool. It's a really interesting premise. And then the teenage son, he does most of the fishing, and he's out one day with his net, and he sees this girl orbiting in the opposite direction. Okay. And then his mom's like, nah, like she's going around the Earth in the wrong way. Like, don't do it. This is like not for you. So
is there dialogue in this film?
Very little. It's very it's very visual. It's very suggestive. The main part of the dialogue happens within the family and like the family dynamic within the spaceship. So they have like 2 separate scenes. One views the Earth, so it's in space, so you don't hear anything, and you never actually hear the girl talk. And then one is when he goes inside and the noise just like comes rushing in. It's a very good like effect that they used. In my opinion, I thought that was very clever. But yeah, so yeah, I'm not going to tell you guys too much about what happens in terms of his rom-com romance, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good watch. I would definitely recommend it. I think it's a very clever, very well laid out film.
Okay.
Short, I
And
guess.
it didn't seem like tacky or badly done at all.
No, it was quite clean, and it was quite like it held together very strongly as a narrative.
Interesting.
Despite the fact that like everything, once I watched a behind the scenes, like everything that you see is like hanging from wire and like half put together. The room isn't even a real room; it's just like a couple walls.
Yeah.
They keep moving around, but yeah, with like really large props. But yeah.
Well, you were talking about like miniatures and filming from different angles. That's a very old trick in the book in terms of movie production. Like they did that on Star Wars. I know that was a common thing that Ridley Scott used in a lot of his films.
Stanley Kubrick definitely.
Yeah.
His little spaceships.
Which architectural tidbit.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool if somebody like worked for like, you know, who's doing the latest Star Wars? Blow stuff up. Abrams, yeah. Yeah, it'd be cool if
you got her a mic.
She does have a mic, but we'll get to that in a second. But it'd really be cool if you could like work for JJ and like build models and stuff. Sorry, weird aside.
The final product is finally a model.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah. I think, I really appreciate that kind of art. Like, I think it's a very big debate, like how much craftsmanship goes into things that involve technology. But when I see these kind of shorts and like the more old-fashioned types of movies where they use these kind of tricks, I think I appreciate it for its like resourcefulness, its cleverness.
Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile
Yeah.
to remember these kind of like crafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be, there's something kind of quaint about sort of the traditional like old-fashioned technique.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
something beautiful about it. Like there's a reason why we for some reason love like handcrafted things.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
yeah.
I also think because like I love film and I follow different people that talk about film, but I remember reading there was a movie that was shot entirely on an iPhone, and it was entered into a film festival, which we'll come back to that topic later. But it was completely shot on an iPhone, and you wouldn't have ever thought that was the case. And they built all these crazy like miniature rigs so they could walk around with the iPhone. And there was like they had different lenses that sat on the surface of the phone, so you could actually like get like a prime lens or different things. And it was just like, it was really cool because you were like, wow, you know, all these big movie companies, they shoot with like red cameras or all these like massive, all these big equipment rigs to shoot the same type of film that these people shot on an iPhone. And I definitely think that people that do have like smaller budgets are more ingenious about how they produce a similar quality film, because they have to actually think about like, oh, how do I do that? Like, I don't have money to just go buy it, so I got to figure it out. But yeah.
Yeah,
Did
restriction.
it win?
Did it?
Did the movie win?
What went?
The one that was shot on the iPhone, like in the film festival.
It won one of the film festivals it was entered in. When I find out the name, I'll actually put that in the description. That'd be really useful. In the YouTube description box when we upload this thing, if I can find it.
True.
But yeah. Cool. Well, Ozzy, you want to tell us about? I'm curious where you're going to take the cultural thing, because I feel like I'm stepping on your toes a little.
Basically, I'm sort of interested in like the role that foreign films play in film festivals, and
right.
I mean, I've only seen one. Last year I went to TIFF and I saw this film called In the Shadow of War. So it was like a Second World War film. I think it was Dutch. And it was about these two young boys and like their friendship as the war progresses. And then obviously there's like a young Jewish girl who's like thrown into the mix as well. And then like, you know, it just plays out. Yeah, just like Poorna was saying.
Yeah, like we could have predicted that, but we're going to think it's amazing when we see it.
But yeah, like I feel like foreign films are pretty important because one, it's kind of like promotes a wider awareness for like different cultures, but also in this case it was a totally different perspective, at least for me, because when I've seen like Second World War films or like Holocaust related films, like they've all sort of been like the same
one
thing.
type. Yeah,
but this was different because it wasn't so much about the Holocaust itself. It was like about how the children were impacted and how their daily lives were impacted.
Sure.
And I found that really cool. And on top of that, it wasn't in like English, right? So there's a sort of like, I guess, authenticity to it. And so, yeah, like I think this links to what you want to talk about, which is just like raising cultural awareness through film in these film festivals.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Well, I mean, so we went and saw the opening film last night at the Grand River Film Festival because we were graciously gifted 10 tickets to go to the screening, and hopefully we'll be able to do things with the film festival maybe within this term's podcast. We might have an interview or two, and then hopefully things to do with them like next year for their 10th year anniversary. But we watched, the film was called, I think it was called Drums, Dreams, and Dance, Subi, I think is what the full title of the film was.
Yeah.
And in short, it was about kids in Uganda that go to a performing arts school and the struggle of being a child in Uganda and how, yeah, okay, I know I'm taking this. Sorry. I lose my train of thought when I talk. And anyway, so I know, it was, hold on. Okay. So it was a movie about Ugandan children and the struggle they have in going to school and what that means to them. And there was interviews after the film, which we saw on stage with the people who were a part of the film, because there was a bit of a documentary, and also with some of the film producers and things. And one thing they said was, these kids are so gracious to just sit in a desk and like learn, and they will sell bananas on the side of the road and miss class just to be in class the next day and be able to do that, because most schools in Africa are actually privatized, and that's the best way to learn. And it hit me, and it's hit me before, but most kids here complain that they're in school like, oh, I don't know if I want to do math, or I don't know if I want to do this. And I think these culture shocks that we have are a good way to be appreciative of the things we have. But then, like as Ozzy was saying, it's a good way to kind of expose ourselves to the way other people live in different places. Like I don't think many people here would have that perspective that, you know, how lucky we are in North America to have these experiences that we all take for granted, basically, if you didn't have something to kind of contrast that. And more, I think the medium that our society experiences things in is film, movie, short clips and things like that. Printed media is still a thing, but it's not as big as like YouTube or, you know, some other places you could watch like these mini short documentaries or these small films and kind of get like that short burst of culture in one shot. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that this isn't like a new phenomenon. Like
No.
we've experienced this kind of like cultural shock multiple times, but I feel like we just get caught up in our daily routines like again and again.
Yeah.
And so having it come back is
Mhm.
is pretty beneficial, so that we can, you know, realize once more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one thing that I know the Grand River Film Festival is trying to ask is, why are film festivals important? Well, for this very reason, that these different cultures, these different perspectives, these different ideas are kind of given an opportunity to hit us again. And film festivals are almost like a specific event. Like if you think about it, if you sit down and watch TV at home and you're like, oh, there's a cultural film on, you know what? I'm not going to watch it. Like most people are going to opt out of doing that because like, why would I want to watch that? But when there's like a film festival, it's an event. We got dressed up and we went to the event and it was really nice. But at the same time too, there's a purpose to going to that event. And I think that's where film festivals can really target people and kind of give that dose of culture from other people.
Do you think that it works the same way if the culture doesn't have like a negative aspect? Like, for instance, like if you had a film about French cheese versus instead of like a film about the devastating poverty in Uganda.
I think it would be kind of effective in a way. It may not hit so impactfully, you know, like French cheese or, oh my goodness, there's, you know, people in severe poverty. That's probably going to hit people more than French cheese, depending on how that's given.
Right, but wait, were you going to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Go
that's
ahead.
debatable because, like, I think both food and the social conditions of an area have, like, their own implications of their culture, and, like, I think both are just as immersive. Like, I mean, one definitely is more impacting in the terms of, like, feeling empathy and
Mhm.
compassion. Like,
Mhm.
that's different because, like, they're suffering and we feel for that.
Mhm.
But in terms of if you're speaking mainly on the basis of like a dosage of culture, I think both are a valid dosage. Both like
You know,
yeah, you
yeah,
see,
I would agree.
a different place, a different way of living from both films on those two different topics.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And like it would be nice to have a selection of different like genres of films within that sort of different cultural like thing. Okay, what am I saying?
Yeah, we just got a whole bunch more people. I think this is the most number of people we've seen at a BRIDGECast yet. You guys can grab like chairs that are floating around if there's not enough space, or if you really feel like moving another couch. We didn't expect this many people to show up. But just for those that either just clicked on this and listened at this point for some reason, or for everybody that just walked in, we're talking about film festivals and the role they play and why they're important. And in a little bit, we'll like open it up to everybody else that's here, because with the 2 microphones that we have out there, and kind of get some opinions of other people, because that was the whole mission statement of BRIDGECast when we started, and now we can actually do that. But yeah, no, I do think that from a cultural perspective, trench cheese and poverty in Uganda, they both have the respective dosage of culture. I was speaking more to the empathetic side of that, in terms of like, you know, empathy sometimes can be more impactful than just, oh, here's a culture. But
even if the film doesn't focus on culture specifically,
yeah,
like I mean, I'd be interested in watching like a German spy movie, like which is like produced by like Germans.
okay.
But like it doesn't like
Do you think that if it's produced in a different country, the
yeah, but like it doesn't like
structure of it
specifically
changes?
focus on Germany. Like it could have its own like whatever storyline.
Sure.
But it's just like it's not like Hollywood. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. They're not trying to beat you over the head with it.
Yeah.
Is what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. There was something we actually talked about a few podcasts ago with Samiha and Kelsey when we spoke about Mad Max, about how Mad Max is actually a very feminist movie, having Furiosa, the female character, as like one of the more primary characters. It was a very well put together feminist movie in that regard, because they weren't trying to beat you over the head with it and say, here's feminism, here's a feminist movie. It just kind of like quietly unraveled on its own, and people like understood it. And I think that movies shouldn't be so concentrated in that sense, where it's like it's a German spy movie about German people, and they're speaking in German, driving German vehicles, eating, you know, German food. Here's German culture. I think it can be more eloquently done in that sense, and people will almost appreciate it more, because they're not being beaten over the head to
Yeah, and
understand
you'd
that.
still get like the different perspective, because it is like at its core German. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think like with an international film, like with international films, they are produced for the local population, right? Like
Right.
like a film from Bollywood, I mean, it's kind of close to Hollywood, isn't produced to be like for an international film festival
Sure.
to show the Indian culture. It's produced for the people who can understand the language and like, you know,
Dance
want
to
to
the
watch.
music.
Okay, not all Bollywood movies are about that.
Boost.
No, I watch. I mean, fair enough, but it's another topic for another day. But like, I think that watching movies made from another culture, like just any movie,
Mhm.
is a really cool experience. Like for a couple months, I used to like try and pick up a French movie every weekend,
Mhm.
and like it was just kind of crazy to see how the general French filmmaking industry kind of approaches storytelling versus Hollywood, or versus like a more independent North American film company
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Well, why don't we actually ask people questions now that we have an audience here? We'll maybe start it with a pretty general one. The topic is film and film festivals, and why don't we ask, why do you guys think film festivals are important, or what role do you think they play in today's society, seeing as maybe previously a film festival attracted more people because that was the only way to view film, versus like it now being digital? Like, do you still think it plays the same role that it would have 10, 15, 20 years ago maybe?
You can switch on the mics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you pick up the microphone, there's a switch there.
I mean, beyond just the viewers. The film festivals are actually super important for the people who are developing the films. It's a method of distribution.
Right.
That's how they gain traction. That's how they get a larger audience. And for a lot of independent film developers from smaller countries or smaller studios, it's through these film festivals such as TIFF or Cannes that they meet the other people in the industry who can sort of help them with funding and help them with connections, right?
Right.
It's at the same time, it might be even more for the film developers in the film industry than it is for the viewers.
Okay.
As far as the viewers are concerned, I think it's also really important and helpful to have the management team and the curators who choose the films that come to the festival, because as far as marketing is concerned, how do you choose when you're looking at the whole world of film? Like, what is good, what is worth my time to watch? The fact that it made it to an international film festival means that this is, first of all, like a really good film, and second of all, will hopefully open my eyes to some style of storytelling or some culture that I haven't experienced yet.
But like, what about local film festivals or regional film festivals? Something that it's not necessarily international and has that role. Like, do you think it plays the same role, or?
I think it plays exactly the same role, just at the more smaller scale, where for me as a viewer, I don't necessarily have all the time to know what's going on in the film industry without someone acting as a curator to say, hey, look at this awesome film someone put together, look at what's going on.
Yeah.
It's good to it's good to have the curation team there. I think it's really useful.
Yeah.
I also think that film festivals kind of provide a platform for you to find films. Like, I don't know, it would be kind of difficult to go on YouTube and be like, I'm gonna look at this film, but I don't know, like, where are you gonna find them, right?
Right.
Unless they're like,
yeah,
in
like
DVDs or something.
Like, I think movies I've watched have been like, like award-winning, international film-winning films that, had they not been that, they may not have actually gotten that sort of exposure. But yeah.
Well, we're talking a lot about broadcasting and advertising these films through the film festivals, and there's another role that they play. Like, I remember when one of my friends first sent me a YouTube link to like the production of Video Game High School.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite film series.
But the discussion about Video Game High School, and they had a lot of publicity. It was always, okay, here's a video, here's our merchandise, here's the Kickstarter, and it's just like, and then we'll get your emails back or your YouTube comments back, right?
Right.
In the Toronto International Film Festival, you watch the film, and then I remember going to watch, what was the name of the movie? It was about like the unionizing of some Korean supermarket people, but that was last year. But like, this was a Korean film, but after the film was done, the director showed up, and the director came onto the stage, and you had a discussion.
Cool.
And that's something that TIFF does, and that's something that all film festival can do. Sure. Is that you're now there in person, and you don't have to wait for emails or look through the spawns of YouTube comments to have a direct discussion with the director about the film and about why they did the film and their topics. It's much more direct and focused.
On that personal note, I think I really enjoy TIFF, which is the only film festival I've attended, because it creates a sense of ritual around film, and like when you elevate like an activity like watching film from sort of like the day-to-day low-level entertainment to something more societal, something more marked by like collective ritual to make it special. It even if the film that you watched specifically was not great, the event can still be great, like a really positive experience.
Oh, absolutely. Like last night when the four of us and a few other people went to the opening night for the Grand River Film Festival, like we were all like dressed up, and we went to Dunfield Theater, and the atmosphere was like nice, and there was food and things, and it was an event. And you wouldn't have done the same thing had we gone to like a movie theater to say like see like Avengers. It wouldn't have been the same thing. And the movie we saw was good, but I think like the whole atmosphere of the space and the whole ritual, as you said, like added to the experience of the film that we saw.
And you're guaranteed to have someone who knows something about what they're talking about, right? To kind of curate the discussion and get things going.
Oh, absolutely,
in a
yeah.
way.
Like last night, I think there was so last night after the film, to recap, it was a film about Ugandan kids and the performing arts school that they attend. And the cool part was after the film was over, the screen lifted and the kids were actually there, and they did this whole like live performance and danced on stage for like 20 minutes or
Yeah.
so.
Which was arguably the highlight of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
yeah, like the film was really good, but then seeing like them dance live was like, whoa! It made the film even more impactful, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
But even after that, they had then sort of like an interview with the two film producers and the three women who had organized the whole exchange. I mean, they were a part of the performing arts school there in Uganda, and they kind of volunteered their time and tried to teach people drama and different classes at the school. But in the same sense, it was like having that direct contact. People asked very good questions about the film, and there's a curator there, or moderator there, sorry, who was sort of directing questions and prompting people. There was this big discussion about, like, you know, what do we do about this, or is there something that we as a Canadian society can do for these Ugandan people?
Yeah, and I think that film festivals are like an acknowledgement of, one, the power of film, but two, the importance of the topics that the films are about.
Sure.
Because that's like, I guess when we dress up and go to these big events, it's sort of like a mark of respect for the films and like for the directors and the team behind like the production of the film, because what they are doing is an important and impactful thing. It's not just like going to the cinema on a weekend and like watching the latest blockbuster, you know?
So yeah.
But then do you think that the smaller theaters that do independent films, do those kind of hold to the film festival atmosphere where you, like, I remember me and my mom would go every Friday night and we'd dress up and we'd have a panini and then we'd go to a movie
Right.
and it was like an interesting international film thing, and it was almost like a year-round film festival. So for me, like, that held the same impact as a film festival. So what do you think the role of like that kind of a theater is?
I think the role of that kind of theater is to continue the discussion that seasonal film festivals bring up. Like, I mean, just fielding a question out here, is that something that you went to like every weekend or as often as you would go to like a regular movie per se?
This is gonna sound so pretentious. After about like grade 10, I stopped going to regular theaters at all.
So pretentious.
Yeah, okay. I really liked those paninis, and the movies were pretty good too. The movies were really good. Like,
but I think film theaters like that are there to kind of continue giving out these sort of films that we wouldn't find on our own necessarily, like as Laura was saying, like curated films that have been selected based on, you know, how good are they, different method of storytelling, and I think that's the role that they play. But does anyone else want to jump in this conversation? Anything to add about film?
Oh, I was just gonna ask, were the paninis like like were the paninis at the theater? Or did you get the paninis?
well, okay, so I live in Waterloo, so it's Princess Cinemas, and there's the Princess Cafe right beside it, and me and my mom used to go there, and so it's like the paninis at Princess Cafe, and then you go into the theater. But there's like a couple independent film theaters in KW, like Apollo and the other Princess. So like we've started going theater hopping when we're together, so it's pretty fun.
Nice.
This Princess Theater reminds me a lot of a small community theater that my studio group and I visited when we were in Newfoundland. It was this historic building in Bonavista, and it had just one theater, and it was used for both cinema and live performance. And they had maybe like a couple every week, and they would advertise all over Newfoundland and draw people from as far as like Deer Lake or St. John's. That's the equivalent of like us driving like almost to Sudbury to see a film, distance-wise. But it's because it's like a particularly cultural venue. it has a particular reputation relative to all of Newfoundland and Bonavista for having film festivals, and for having like music festivals or theater festivals, like all sorts of artistic productions. And I feel like the role of that kind of place goes even farther than just film or the arts or something. And the more significant impact of that place is just as a social condenser where you can go and meet people, and it's like the community investment in that venue, using the agent of the arts to generate interest, is the really impactful part of the venue, more so than being able to distribute like Despicable Me to the citizens of Bonavista.
Right.
Out of curiosity, what did the building look like? Is it historic or is it just like a regular space? I don't know if you can call it.
It's historic and it's also regular. Most of the buildings there look historic because they are historic.
Sure.
It has like wood slat sidings, like white with little like.
Does it look like a standard
boards.
Newfoundland building?
Yeah, it looks like a standard Newfoundland building minus the windows. Yeah.
Right.
Also bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to think. I think that it'd be really cool if we had our own architectural film festival.
That would be really cool to be able to curate them and like,
Yeah.
and even have our own.
Because
shorts.
kind of like on that last comment, sort of building a space that is sort of like a cultural center to draw people into, and sort of ritualistic in a way, is something I think that we could use here at the school. Because I think most times we get too sucked into whatever we're doing at the school. Like right now there's like a handful of deadlines that a lot of us are not sleeping to try and get done. And I think that we could all use a space like that where, you know, maybe next term or another term thereafter, somebody could pick that up and be like, yeah, we'll do, every week we'll do a movie or something. Actually, you know what? People have done that before. Yeah. And I think that's usually always been pretty successful in drawing people out.
I'm more curious about how an architecture student will go about making a film. I think like coming into the program, I've seen a lot of people with a lot of different skills that sometimes look like they directly apply to architecture and at other times they don't. And like, yeah, I'm curious to see like if we had like a 24-hour film festival kind of thing where you make your film and you exhibit it. I'm like, yeah, interested to see what people could come up with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, secretly, I have this plan to make my own movie come January.
It's not secret anymore.
now it's not
Everyone
I think
knows.
you've told
You've
us
told like
before.
every
Have I?
single person.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, Fion, that there's a lot of skills that people possess here in architecture that aren't directly architectural, and can almost see something through a different lens, and a film festival is a perfect place to put something like that out there. And also to go back to what you talked about earlier about like a low budget and getting creative with that. I think that's a skill that we learn how to do in this school, maybe on a broader sense in architecture schools, is learning how to do a lot with very little.
I think a lot of the skills we learn are very transferable.
Yeah, across many different fields. Like they're not just specific. Like people leave architecture to go into fashion, or like, you know, I think we have had somebody graduate from the school that's a very big film director. I don't remember his name. That's really bad. We have a microphone.
There's a guy in the class that just graduated in August who is a Grammy.
What?
Yeah. I don't think he graduated. No. But he was part of the class. Yeah.
Is this Jordan? Yeah.
He's taking 5 years.
That's super cool that someone managed to do most of the undergrad program and also.
No, he got his Grammy first and then decided he wanted to do architecture for some reason.
That's insane. I don't think I'll ever have that much talent.
Yeah.
I feel like
So wait, how old is he?
It's like maybe 26.
25,
26.
26.
Yeah.
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 He was a producer, so working with
course.
Eminem or something.
Of course.
Or something.
That's
yeah.
pretty amazing to
Yeah.
and then to be like, I'm gonna do architecture as well.
But I also think that on the topic of film festivals and architecture school, I think it'd be really cool. It'd actually be really cool to have a design studio that was film design. I know there's electives for that, but it'd be really cool. But it'd be really cool if like there's a film studio that was about designing film. I know there's a friend of mine I work with that was like part of like an elective, and they had to produce like a short 5-minute film for something. But I think it'd be really cool to see like what people could churn out, because I always find that whenever we do projects here at the school, and you have to challenge yourself to do something, learn something new, you're actually quite surprised with what you put together. Like I know in our 3A class last term, we all had to animate a 10-minute video for one of our studio submissions, and very few people off the bat knew how to animate. And by the end of it, when we were sitting in the lecture hall watching everybody's miniature animations that we had 2 weeks to put together, we were just all like blown away by how well put together most of them were. And I think if you applied that to film, that would actually, be pretty similar in that sense.
Maybe we can like do something like that, like start something.
I think that'd actually be really cool if we started like a film club almost
Yeah.
as part of Bridge. Maybe, or on its, but yeah, because one thing I talked that we are potentially looking to do with the film festival next year for the 10th anniversary is host maybe a few films in the Bridge space. And one idea that was tossed out was, what if that turned into potentially like student produced films or even student curated films in that sense? And I think it'd be really cool to see that.
I think our audience has a comment, question.
Well, it's just a side note that we're talking a lot about our different skills and what happens when we put them together, and you seem to be talking around the issue and you forget, like, we kind of had that in the play.
Yep.
Remember? And that's very relevant, even though it is theater instead of movies. And so, like, we definitely every summer show that this is possible.
Yeah.
And I guess it is just a matter of finding the time and the place.
This is in
Yeah.
3.
So I'll cover that a little bit. So in the 2B term, which is the second year term in the summer, I'm not sure if it's still happening, but traditionally there's been a play, and that's your final, so to say, for your cultural history course, in which the entire class has to write, script, produced, cast, score music for, build sets for, do everything for, and fund. That's the fun part. But you essentially produce your own play, and you go on very little. It's not like, oh, we're gonna do.
There's a bird in this building.
Is that a bird or a bat?
I think me and a couple of people were upstairs getting some stuff, and we saw pigeons, or
Yeah.
we heard pigeons.
Yeah.
So they're probably coming down here.
Oh, well, they heard we have a microphone. They came to talk. But yeah, so anyway, so you end up having to produce a play, and as Terry pointed out, we actually do have those skills, and you get to see those skills kind of put to the test. And everyone's always surprised at what we can put together from a theater perspective, which isn't all too that different from film. Yeah.
But aren't they considering canceling that?
Potentially, but we'll see what happens.
Well,
That's the whole
Valve-
reason I came to this
Yeah,
school.
legit.
So
Legit.
could,
I
do that.
totally like I bragged to my friends that I was gonna get to do this, and I was like, haha, you're going into other things, you won't get to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has the same feeling, but you guys are talking about like learning how to make films and all that stuff, but I really enjoy watching films.
Mhm.
And for me, it's kind of like a magic trick, right? I don't want to know how it's being made, because that's going
Right.
to break the illusion for me.
Right.
And I understand when you get to learn something, you might be able to understand it more, and enhances it. But when I found out, that the first Star Wars, or like, what is it, the fourth movie now, I guess,
Yeah.
you know,
The original.
They had props and everything for that. The first space scene where you see it, Han's spaceship flying through. I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to believe that they
were actually in space.
It's you want to keep that illusion real, and I'm sure not everyone feels the same way, but I think there's something really nice about not knowing how these things are made.
Mm-hmm.
No, for me, it's like once I find out how it's done. Like, for example, I used to not admire art half as much as I do now after trying to paint with oil paint, and now I look at oil paintings, I'm like, how did you do that? Because I think there are two things that make things interesting. Either like knowing someone like that you have a relationship with that's interested in that thing, and then you kind of see why they're interested and you trying to find out that, or you yourself, you have experience and knowledge in the background of how these things are done, and then it just adds a second like depth to the work, like to films. My dad told me, I'm not sure if this is true because my dad told me this.
Must be true.
That for Alien, the control room, they were running on a low budget. So the control room was entirely, the wall was done with egg cartons. And I don't know if that's true, but I just like, then I looked for that when I watched the movie and I was like, that is really cool because you can't tell. So for me, I think, especially in art, it's only become interesting once you know something about it. And once you know, you add that extra dimension to it. So I guess I'm disagreeing with you, but I mean, I can see your side too.
I mean, I raised the point earlier. I don't remember what film festival, and I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie that was entirely shot on an iPhone. And had you not known that, you wouldn't have had the same appreciation for the film. And it looked like a regular studio production film. And then you look at the rigs and how they did it, you're like, they shot that on an iPhone? What? And it's crazy. But kind of going on that same point, you have almost a deeper appreciation for the amount of skill that went into producing that, to do that. Kind of almost like the Star Wars, like, yeah, okay, it might ruin the magic trick a little bit, but you're like, wow, you did that all with models. I actually felt like this was something much larger than it really was.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I don't think ignorance is bliss.
Well, it might just be a case where it might be the choice of this being an elective, well, if we're talking about coursework, but being a club or something, like you have that option, right? Personally, I'm like at the far extreme with understand. I don't just learn how movies are made. I read up on literary conventions as well. I don't care about suspense and plot. I just want to know the plot, how the plot works,
right?
The mechanics of it. So like, and it kind of speaks to, we were talking earlier of the film festival directly, of how you discuss the film afterwards. There's something automatically meta about going to a film festival,
right?
Because you're now thinking about film in of itself,
right?
And and like in the same way, architecture is the meta of building. I think there's definitely enough people with that kind of thinking of like the meta-oriented thinking to get into this. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but
no, I'm in the same boat. Like you mentioned, video game high school, and I follow the whole Freddie Wong team, and I would watch like the second by second how they would produce, like when they get shot and they kind of de-res and turn into cells and stuff. I watched how they did that in After Effects, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it was even cooler than like have watched that process and go back to the film and be like, oh my God, that was seamless. And they're doing 26 of those at the same time. It takes 6 hours to do one of those nicely.
But when you go into that much detail into learning how to do it, do you then go to other films which use similar technique and go, yeah, you didn't do it as well. And do you lose something in appreciating other movies? Like I think Terry's daughter is a designer, like a fashion is a costume designer, and she goes into movies, and now she was saying that like she can't appreciate it because she's looking at the clothes and she's being like, well, maybe you could do it this way, and like she's distracted from the holistic film experience.
Well, I think this is, I'm going to tie this back into architecture as well. I think you can switch that on and off if you train yourself to do so. Like I can still watch a movie that's got certain parts that aren't quite figured out and still appreciate the film for itself. Much in the same way, when I walk down the street, I'm like, ooh, the brick is spalding on that building. They did a bad job detailing that. I don't like the way it looks. But then you can step back and kind of say, like, forget all the tiny things. I can appreciate this building for what it is and what it's trying to communicate. Yeah, it's got a couple of blemishes here and there, but on the whole, there are other things about it that kind of redeem itself. Much in the same way, like if that fashion designer like ignored the clothing and like just paid attention to the way the story was being conveyed, I think she could also find beauty in that as well. That doesn't detract away from the film.
Yeah, I'm just agreeing with what Brandon said. It's been a long time since I wasn't able to pin the eventual fate and the archetype of a character within the first 10 minutes of anything.
Yeah.
And like, there's no... You just read up a lot on TV tropes. TV tropes. It will ruin your life unless you're a troper. But like, there is, you do train how to turn that on and off, I find. And like, I've still found the Avengers like entertaining, even though like you don't have to learn up on tropes to know what's going to happen, right? Like, it's just that way. But the main reason I was going to talk about, Mike, there seemed to have been a bit of discussion on what video game high school is and Freddie Wong and that stuff, and it might be best to clarify.
Please
the reason why I brought up video game high school and Freddie Wong in a general sense is because this was a case of an independent developer through just going on YouTube, gaining enough traction in order to get funding for a reasonably, like, I don't know how many people there was in the production.
There was quite a few for that one.
But like, they basically ramped up from just some guy on a camera and doing special effects to like a full TV production. I remember one of my high school friends getting inspired by him, and we like cut out cardboard guns and armor and like went into his dad's office and ran around the parking lot. It was like filming, got everything done, and got kicked out. But like, that is knowing how things are done, I feel, gives you inspiration to doing it yourself.
Absolutely.
On a slightly related note, I think what you're saying is that a bit more immersion in the process, in understanding the process, makes the whole film industry slightly more accessible than it would be otherwise. And I think that, getting back to the thought about film festivals, I think don't exactly act in that way. They act in that way for the people who attend, but I think the act of making a festival, like making a ritual out of film watching, makes it slightly less accessible as a popular entertainment. It puts a slightly higher price tag on film. It turns it into a bit more of a highbrow form of entertainment than it would be if you are like, watching television in your home or going to Cineplex, or even if you were to watch an independent film at your local theater, which I think is, I guess I'm speaking more to international film festivals than local film festivals. But as far as the question of like the YouTube channel, understanding how it's made, I think that can either act as putting you more in the role of the viewer and like creating more of a admiration relationship between you and the film producers, or it can enable you to get into the industry yourself. Yeah, go Terry, argue.
I thought we were taking turns. That's why I was waiting. Are you talking specifically about the craft of making films, or like the discussion about the plot lines and plots and stuff?
I'm talking about the whole meta culture outside of the film itself.
Like the way I see film festivals, it's a lot more about the discussion and the plot and like the reasons for making the film and the message and that kind of stuff.
Oh, I think so too. I think like you don't get that after the Avengers. Like the cast doesn't sit down in front and be like, "This is why we decided to talk. This is why we decided to do it this way." But you'd get that at a film festival because like that's their moment to shine and try and kind of put themselves on the forefront.
Yeah, but it's a different thing from reading up on how they set up the camera and why Citizen Kane was like this big thing, because they have like focus far out in front and in the
Yeah, I think to simplify the argument and what you're saying here is film festivals are a place to kind of learn how they did how they did it on like more of a coarser tone, but like the more technical things of like camera placement and like what After Effects stunt they did maybe isn't as relevant unless it's very particular to the movie itself.
I think that I think that with film festivals is more why they did it. Like when you're talking to a panel in a film festival, it's like, why did you start this film? How did you get inspired?
Yeah.
Like the questions kind of follow the why.
Right.
Especially more than a how. Like
I think Laura brought up something really interesting when she started talking about the economics of the industry, and if we're gonna, I really don't think film festival is about, well, part of it is about maybe educating people about like how films are made, but I think that's a really minor thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why they have film festivals is very clear. It's a marketing strategy, and it's a networking opportunity for different film developers. They
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have film festivals if if there was no profit out of it.
Right.
Cannes is now open to the public. It's one of the largest film festivals in the world, but it's only for people within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clear that they don't need other people to go to film festivals, right? That Cannes is still really successful,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, TIFF is almost an exception. It's one of the reasons why TIFF is really successful today, is that it's publicly accessible to everyone. It's one of those, it gives the plebs a chance to watch some movies.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys want to talk about that or if that interests you.
I think Laura was talking about how film festivals are very highbrow as well, and like I think that the thing I loved about going to this independent film movie theater, I guess, is that it becomes this very accessible thing, which it sometimes isn't with film festivals, especially like the CAMs where you're not really like even allowed to go unless you're part of the industry, right?
Right.
I feel like Laura has something to say.
I think that any event that's organized like that with a curator and an itinerary inherently makes its content a little bit more elitist than it was before the event was held. Like even though you may not perceive it as inaccessible, it's putting a ever so slightly edging up the price tag on being able to enjoy the entertainment by elevating it, and like it makes a nicer atmosphere, and it's not like inaccessible to the middle class or something, but it still adds to the position of elitism of film. And I personally don't see any issue with that because a film is a large budget production, but I think that I think that the argument that or what Terry was referring to about understanding the film, yes, it makes it more accessible to you as an individual, but it also to the larger culture makes it less accessible. It makes it more of its own kind of nerdy, cliquey thing, and distinguishes itself from sort of mainstream culture. And I think that's probably what you do want for film because it's a form of art. But I think at the same time you should be conscious that I think by having a film festival, you make it special, you make it nice, you make it advertised, you make it visible. You also make it less accessible by doing that.
Right.
I wouldn't exactly call it elitist. So
you wouldn't call the TIFF building elitist?
No. It's also held at Ryerson's theater, so
yeah, but the HQ is at King and John. It's a pretty massive building.
Well,
to
yeah,
live there,
but I was
a
also
really
a
deep
student
wallet.
that just happened to be able to go to the film festival just because it was there, and it was also in a very accessible area for many people who, well, are students who are almost like the inverted definition of elitist because we have no money at all.
Right.
Except for the bank of mom and dad.
Wow, someone's taking
just a comment.
Yeah.
The bank of mom and dad.
on the
That's a valid quote for anyone knowing.
The BMD.
So my roommates, for example, last year, one of them was in film, the other one was an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And the one who was in film was a bit of a crazy guy. I totally love him, though. But what I realized is that the films he likes to make and the films he tends to like have nothing to do with them being elitist. It's just that there are certain things that people who know more about films can appreciate, and because they can appreciate those things, they look for those things more so than others. It's not that they're elitist. It's more of that they're not really concerned at the entertainment value of the film itself, more of what it can achieve and what it can tell as an art form.
Sure.
Well, Lara was talking specifically about the mechanics of the festival in itself, right? That there is a budget to that. But I will state, like there's a like they're in Vancouver, Stanley Park during the summer, they have films every Tuesday.
Right.
Like you go to, even back at Markham, they have that same thing too. And it's still curated, like under your definition, Lara, there's still a curation going on, but it is still very much open to the public, and it's definitely not raised economically. That's like a public purse kind of thing.
Right.
And like, and speaking of like the more formal and official festivals, yes, there is, like the height of the brow is a question, obviously, in that, but it's a question more about the place of the film festival. Like, do we say that the film festival is the market of films for everyone? No, I think YouTube takes that, or something other online takes that. The film festival, as we are discussing it, at least the way I interpret what we're discussing it, has a place for the more curated, for the, in your definition, for the more elitist, for the higher brow, to a certain degree.
Right.
And that's just like a necessary evil in a sense, in order to get discussion. Like, forums moderate commentators, and then that is as well a form of elitism in that sense, right? But you want that moderation in certain cases.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I was just pointing out that actually I said that it's important.
Right. Okay.
I think you guys are making the same point.
Yeah, I feel like we're going in circles at this point with some of the comments, but I actually think that's a good point to close because we're a little over an hour. But I wanted to thank, first of all the hosts here for being a part of tonight, and I want to thank all the audience members for showing up. This is the first time we have the microphones for the audience working, and the first time we actually have a sizable audience. So thanks everybody for contributing to this. It really helped to sort of raise awareness, I guess, in a sense about film festivals, which is why we sort of themed this particular episode in that sense. And yeah, so if you are interested in attending the next BRIDGECast, we do this every Tuesday, 9:30 to 10:30 p.m.
On Friday in the main lecture hall, there's going to be a film, and I believe you can get your tickets either at Scotiabank or online. It's part of the Grand River Film Festival, and
yeah, I think there are 2 films playing actually.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And they're $10 for a ticket for students.
For students, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can look up times and stuff online, and it's a pretty sweet deal.
Yep.
There's food with one of those, I believe.
Yeah. So definitely attend that because the film festival ends this week, and this episode is going to air on Wednesday, so you will have time when you are listening to this to run out and do that. But yeah, come check us out every Tuesday, 9:30, 10:30. You can find our podcasts on YouTube and SoundCloud, and the rest of our content where the podcasts are also posted is at waterlooarchitecture.com/bridge. That's where you can find all the content that we as students produce in the name of culture and everything we find interesting outside of our studio drawings. And I think we'll call that a wrap. We'll see you guys next week.